Okay, last time we took data from the and kind of stored it directly into a variable. That's not very useful, obviously. As I said, we could just do that in HTML. This time we're going to have a very quick overview of really what the essential function of using PHP today on the web is, and that is processing user input. Again, this is a program in interactive communication, and so I would be remiss in not providing you with the means for getting information from your user. Of course, we can do this in a content management system, but it's useful to understand this one little piece, and later on we'll do the other little piece, which is storing that data in a database, and then we'll have, at least at a very core basic level, kind of how to use PHP. So first we need to do a quick review and go back and think about forms. This is again that basic core all the junk that we'd have in there, and I've just put in a new title, which is 6.62 form, and then this is the whole of the actual body, and that's a form. You'll remember that form starts with form and ends with form and has a bunch of different inputs in there. In this case, I have a single input, which is of type text. It's a blank. And remember that name, this is the only place you can use name in HTML, in XHTML1, and that is to indicate what the name of this box is. In other words, this is kind of very similar to a variable. You're saying, what are we going to call the user input in this particular case? Now, on this form, we only have one box, so it doesn't matter. But imagine you have a box where you have address and first name and last name and all the rest of the bits. You'd have to have a different name for each one of those items in order to have the computer be able to tell where things are and what they are. All right, so we have a single input, and that's for username. This is really a type of it's called input, but it's just the submit button. You have to have a submit button. Yeah, so we have a submit button there. And then under form, we have the action going to a file called catch.php. I'm calling it catch because I'm going to use this metaphor of, you have the form in a pitcher, and you throw the ball, and the ball is kind of this URL with the stuff in it, and then it's caught by another page. Later on we'll change that a little, but for now we're going to have a pitcher and a catcher. We're calling the pitcher, as you can see, index.html. I guess we could call it pitch.html. But we're going to call the file that's going to catch this catch.php. So we're going to have two files this time. This is the file that you start with, and then we have to have kind of the back-end file that catches it and displays the results. The method we're using is post. I won't get into the nitty-gritty of the difference between get and post. Let's just say that you generally use post. There's some good reasons to use get in particular cases, but you generally use post. What post does is it kind of hides all of this input and secretly hands it off to the server as you submit something, and that can be very useful. Alright, so we've got an action, we've got a method, we've got a form. This should all be good. We're going to save it. It's already been saved, so we're good. Next, we're going to go back to our file that we had from 6.1, and we're going to save it as, file save as, catch.php. And we'll replace whatever we've got there. Alright, so this is the same one we had before, but we're going to switch it over to 2. We still want it to say hello, but in this case it might not always be Alex. In fact, we're going to have it be equal to a special variable called post. Post is a kind of variable called an array. And an array is a little bit, if you think about kind of an egg carton, an array is a little bit like an egg carton. It's a variable that can hold lots of different things. And in this case, it holds all of the stuff that gets submitted under a post. So this is kind of a variable of variables. That's kind of what an array is. And so we say we want what's in post, but we want what's in the slot for username in post. So if you had a bunch of things that were being submitted in a post, the name, the birthday, the address, whatever, each of those would be separate things within these square brackets inside of post. Again, I don't really care too much about the details for now. I mean, it really is useful for you to understand what an array is down the line, and we'll run into it again. But for now, just know that you can set your variable equal to the whatever the thing is in post. You might ask, okay, well, why can't I just use this down here? You actually can. There's a good reason to change it over to your own. There's a couple of good reasons. Sometimes you need to check to make sure there's anything there at all, which we'll run into here in a minute. And there's other things as well. But for now, just think of it as taking whatever's in this variable and putting it into this variable. And then once again down here we'll echo that variable. So before we were setting it to a very specific string, now we're going to set it to whatever the user has posted, whatever the user has put into that form under the thing that we named user's name. Alright, so we're going to save this, and we will upload both of those files to, well, I already have, I'm cheating, to 6.2. So we've got two files in there. We've got index.html, that's .html because there's no PHP in there, and catch.php. So let's go ahead and load up the file located 50562. Here's our basic form, which we created with just the thing where it puts my name. So I'm going to put in my name and hit submit. So it loads in what we've asked it to load in, which is hello, nobody special. Very straightforward, very simple. In the activity, I'm going to ask you to do something with multiple items and load them in, but for now you have the basics. Next time we're going to have it start to make decisions, and then very soon we're going to arm it and allow it to take over from the humans. See you then.